Hello, my name is Sonnet Nguyen. I'm a senior here at Valencia High School. I'm an IB, as evident by the permanent bags under my eyes. I'm also the approximate size of a 12-year-old. Fun facts about me. But I'm not here to talk about either of those two things. I'm here to talk to you here about creativity in art. I'm an AP art student here as well, and I think that creativity is not what everyone supposes it to mean. I think that creativity is the expression of an original perspective rather than an original idea. And I'm going to finish doing this right now. So I think that creativity is not necessarily about thinking outside of the box, but rather choosing to see the box or what one sees as limits from a new perspective. So I encourage you to share your perspective in that manner. So let's tackle this cliche of creativity in boxes first of all. If boxes are meant to be what already exists and what has been said and what is present or the general norm, then that means that thinking outside of the norm is being creative, and in that I have a complaint. Let me take this to an unnecessarily specific and convoluted level. What happens when an individual wants to leave a closed box with no exits? I feel that sort of creative inaction is due to limitations and excuses that we make for ourselves, like time or money, and then one has to conclude that creativity must not be synonymous to originality. If everyone is original, then no one is different, and then no one can be creative. So there's the first step over and done with, but what now? How do I communicate a unique perspective? How do I battle limitations to communicate said perspective? And why is this barely an adult teenage girl asking a bunch of rhetorical questions when she's the one supposed to be talking and drawing for the rest of this minutes of a TED Talk? Well, good folks, I have a few answers, as this whole thing is scripted, and that's what I'm supposed to do. One thing I suggest that you can do is what are supposed limitations and look at them in a more positive light. I mean, if you have limited time, then what can you do in that time period? And I don't mean like procrastinate and being overconfident in your ability to do things at the last minute. We've all done it, and if you claim to not have done that, you're a liar. But in other words, I'm talking about something else, and I have two other examples of battling limitations, specifically art-related, but I promise I have a point. It usually involves drawing a model or a still life in time drawings, not quite unlike what I'm doing right now, but no matter the limit in a time drawing, in which usually you will have to sit and draw a model for 3 or 4 hours or so, or even having to get something down in 10 seconds, which sucks. But I think that that sort of time limit can apply in general. Instead of being worried about a time limit, especially in a time drawing, the purpose of a time drawing is to be accurate. That is the goal. So instead of worrying about a supposed goal or a supposed limit, like a time limit, one worries about the goal instead and focuses on the goal. So in that instance, being creative, one can focus on the goal, and for me as an artist, I would prefer to create a stimulating and a visually interesting piece rather than to get something done or to focus on the limitations of what I have financially or if I'm on a time limit. Now I'd like to briefly discuss the recent trend of art challenges on the internet, because there has been a recent trend of general challenges on the internet, but specifically art, because I feel like it's a very not small community, but maybe lesser known by the general public. In terms of art challenges, there's this thing called a 3-marker challenge, in which it's pretty much what it sounds like. An artist picks 3 markers from their collection to use solely in a piece, and that is the only color they are allowed to use. Or there's even makeup, this even goes so far to apply to makeup challenges, one being a full face using only liquid lipsticks. They're a bit ridiculous, and they're definitely entertaining to watch, but it's interesting to see how different artists approach the challenge, as most of them seem to see those sorts of challenges as a writing prompt rather than a limit they use that as a jumping or a creative spark to their new ideas rather than to focus and complain that it is a challenge and that they're only limited by what they have. And so, being worried about financials is something we can avoid by doing that similar thing. There's plenty else that I could go into in terms of art challenges, but I think I've covered the subject quite thoroughly. So, in an overall conclusion, I think that we need to see creativity from a new perspective and see ourselves from a new perspective and represent new ideas in that manner. By communicating new ideas and by forcing ourselves to see limitations from a new perspective other than as limitations, because limitations really, much like the words good and bad, are words, describers, and adjectives for any specific situation. So force yourself to see limitations as simply situations that you can either overcome or use to jump off of. Thank you.